Flosstube. I'm Amy. I'm the Globetrotting Stitcher, and back with you today for episode 8. I hope that you have all been well, and I hope that as summer has been winding down wherever you live, or winter winding down if you're in the southern hemisphere. But whatever season is winding down, I hope that's going well for all of you, and you're enjoying and anticipating the season that is to come. On that note, we have been keeping somewhat busy here. I went ahead and my rule of thumb, so in the US we have Labor Day weekend, which is always the first weekend in September. And so that's usually the time when I will start pulling out my autumn decorations. And Labor Day fell a little bit later than it normally does in September. And so I decided that September 2nd, those autumn decorations were coming out. So that's one of the things I did this last week. And it's one of my favorite things to do. So autumn is my favorite season. And it's when I start getting a little bit abundant with my decorating. So Gary tolerates it very well, but I love to decorate for autumn as well as for Christmas. And so things tend to get a little bit not flowery, but there's a lot more stuff going on in the house. So it's been fun pulling all of that out and starting to enjoy it. The other thing that's been going on around here is that Gary has been trying his hand at making some needle minders. And so I thought I would show you what he's been up to. Some of these are a bit experimental, and so we're kind of still figuring out getting the right kind of hold and the right kind of magnets and what does and doesn't work really well. But it's been really fun to see some of the different things he's produced. And I've started using a few of these, or at least one of them. So we're still kind of figuring it out and learning, but it's been really fun to kind of see him experimenting with making some needle minders. And I think he's got some really cool and unique things and some really beautiful ones. So
yeah, some of those don't work.
I thought we had agreed not to disclose that information.
Yeah, we did.
Well, you could see what happened with that. At any rate, I've been really enjoying watching him work on these, and he's got a few other things that he's going to be trying over the next several weeks. So that's been fun. Let's see what else has been going on. This last week, I decided to make a long overdue trip down to Acorns and Threads in Portland. So my friend Rochelle, who is also a stitcher, she's a newer stitcher. I taught her a few of the basics earlier this year, and she has just taken off like a shot. And so she and I got up in the wee hours of the morning and drove down to Portland together so that we could be at Acorns and Threads almost as soon as they opened the door. And so we spent a good hour or so down there and had a really good time. I showed admirable self-restraint. So I have a little bit of haul to show you, but not too much. But we just had a really great time, and it was so fun to get out and just look at the stuff and brainstorm and come up with ideas. And it was really fun. That was her first visit to a cross-stitch shop. And so it was really fun to be able to show her some of the models and just let her see what is out there in the great wide world of cross stitch. So that was a really fun trip with Rochelle. And then I think the last thing is I had a little bit of a surprise. So last weekend so you saw in our last video that I was ready to take my Winter Queen and my Rose Quaker sampler in to be framed. And so I had those all ready, and last weekend I took them up to the local Joann's to get them framed. Picked everything out. I'm really excited about how everything is looking, and I think they're both going to turn out beautiful. And I've framed several pieces at that Joann's now, and they've always done a really good job. But it usually takes, it's about a 2-week turnaround. And so I was really excited because I was like, oh, I've got plenty of time to get Winter Queen back in time for my niece's birthday, which is at the end of September. So as so many things are these days, and I should have anticipated this and didn't, but there are some delays as far as ability to get supplies. And so it looks like they warned me it's more likely going to be an 8-week turnaround instead of a 2-week turnaround. So Cameron's birthday present has now become her Christmas present. So I was a little bit disappointed because I was really looking forward to getting those back and being able to show you guys and then being able to surprise Cameron for her birthday. But it is what it is. And, that is what, That's the way it goes. So it might be a bit of a long wait before I have a few, have those back from the framer to show you, but I'm looking forward to sharing them with you when they're all done. So let's move on to questions. We only have one question that came in this week, and that came from Paula Urias, or Urias. I apologize if I mispronounced that. But she had said that she really loved the Rose Quaker sampler and she wanted to know where to get the pattern. So I purchased that directly from the designer. The designer is Stickeden van der Wienberg. And I will include a link to their website below. They have a lot of wonderful choices. And I was able to get my pattern as a PDF, which I prefer. But I believe you can also purchase paper charts if that's your preference. Because they are based in, I believe it's a German designer. And so it might be preferable to get a PDF chart from them just because shipping takes quite a while from the EU these days. But if you prefer paper, I'm sure that they could accommodate that. Okay, so I thought I would show you a couple previous finishes. In the spirit of fall decorating, we will start with a design that I finished last year. This was completed actually just over a year ago. And this is Pumpkin Patch Farm. This is a design that was, this is a Victoria sampler design. It is stitched on.
They do that too?
Yeah. Yes.
Or is it a different Victoria?
No, a different Victoria.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You done there?
Yes.
Okay. So this is stitched on a 32 count mystery linen. When I ordered the supplies for this one, I wasn't paying as close of attention to, tracking what linens I was using. I'm actually paying attention to that now. So I don't know. I just know it was a 32 count. And I went ahead and stitched it with the called for silks. This was the first design that I had stitched with silks. And they had a handy dandy little floss pack that I was able to order, so I didn't have to spend a small fortune just to get all of the silks that are required for this because there are quite a few. So really enjoyed stitching this, and this is a band sampler for those of you that don't know. So there are lots of different kinds of samplers. This is a band sampler. And I really, really enjoyed it. It's got a lot of specialty stitches. And so this was also the first time that I had done a piece that had a fair number of different specialty stitches. So this has triple rice stitch. It's got a lot of lazy daisies and a number of others. To be honest, it's been long enough that I don't remember all of the specialty stitches, but it was a lot of fun to do. And it was just really, really beautiful. One of the things that I really enjoyed, I think one of the most about this, there's a, what is it? I think it's a Gloriana that is used in several of the bands. And it's a variegated thread. I believe it was called Grape Leaf. And it's used for the leaves up here, and it's used the leaves here, and then in a few different bands here, where the colors go from like your autumny reds and golds and yellows into greens and then into blues and purples. And so I know some folks don't particularly like that for a fall piece because it's not all of the colors are traditionally fall, and it is a little unusual to have like purple and blue leaves, but for whatever reason, I really loved that thread. I really enjoyed working with it. And it was just beautiful. So there we have it, Victoria Sampler, Pumpkin Patch Farm, and this was a real pleasure to stitch. And it actually stitched up quite quickly. All right, the other design that I want to show you, I actually poached this from Rochelle. So the same Rochelle of my friend who has recently taken up stitching herself and who went to Acorns and Threads with me this last week. I had promised her, gosh, it's been a couple of years ago now, that I would do a stitched piece for her. And so this is what I did. Gary's helping because it's a little on the big side. Thank you, honey. There we go. So this is Sabrina. This is an older Mirabilia design. It is stitched on a 32 count mystery fabric. And it's mostly stitched in DMC. There's a couple of Karen water lilies that are used in this design. But this was, it took me about a year to stitch. I think it was something like, gosh, I don't know, 75 or 80 days of stitching, something like that. I'd have to go back and look at my spreadsheet, but it was a real pleasure to stitch. And so I had finished this earlier this year. I finished this in January of this year. And I went ahead and this is the first really large piece that I have framed myself. So I pinned it, and I actually, when I poached it back from Rochelle, I took a look at it on her wall recently, and I was like, oh gosh, I didn't stretch that very well. There were some pretty bad gaps. And so I said, I need to fix that. And she said, oh, it's fine. I don't mind. And I was like, I mind. I want that to look good. So I brought it home. I re-stretched it. I'm much happier with how it's looking. And really, really loved working on this piece. One of the things that I discovered while I was working on it, and I thought was really neat, is that although the lady has blonde hair, this piece was actually inspired by Audrey Hepburn. So some of you may remember that Audrey Hepburn starred in a movie called Sabrina. That was the main character. And at the premiere of the film, she wore this dress. And so you can actually find photos, if you Google that, of Audrey Hepburn in this beautiful gown at the premiere of Sabrina. And so that's where the inspiration for this design came from. And it's really, really lovely. It was so much fun to stitch. So there's some beautiful Mill Hill treasures scattered throughout the skirt. And almost all of these swoops that you see of black, that is beading. So it's very heavily beaded, really, really beautiful. So I did stitch this as called for, with the exception of the roses. So the design is actually charted for the roses to be in pink. And I wanted to get more of that old Hollywood feel that you get with that black, white, red combo. And so I did a color conversion to red. So I'm going to pull this back up again later in the video because I want to talk about just a couple quick tips and tricks. I've had a lot of questions from folks about color conversions over the last several videos. And so I want to take a few minutes to talk about how to approach those. And this is a good example of a place to start. So we'll be pulling this back up to talk about that in a few minutes, but wanted to share this with you. Oh, she's so pretty, isn't she? I just love her. Oop. All right, down she goes. All right, next I have an FFO to share with you. So I had a little bit of time off this last week or so. I finally took some vacation. I did work a little bit in the mornings because it's really busy right now, and I just couldn't take a full week off work. But I had mostly vacation time. And so during that time, I finally was able to get a couple good chunks of time to work on finishing off my very first pillow. And so here she is. I finished off the Primitive Merry Christmas pillow by Abby Rose Designs. And I've had a good laugh at myself over this. So I'm like 85% happy with how it turned out. And I will tell you, I'll just show you kind of what I did with it. So first of all, I would like to say that a normal person would decide, I'm making my first pillow. I'm going to kind of keep it simple. I am not a normal person. So I did a bunch of different things with this that made it a lot more complicated. And some of those contributed to my not feeling super happy with how it turned out. So the first thing was I had chosen, so I used the same fabric front and back, and it's this beautiful Christmassy plaid. This actually comes, I turned it on its side, or to give it an angle, as opposed to like a straight up and down. So that made it more complicated because I had to do a bunch of fussy cutting to kind of get it to do what I wanted it to do. The other thing I did is, so I don't have I have storage space, but I feel like I'm kind of at the max as far as how many pillows I can actually, have a full-size pillow in storage when it's not in use. And so what I decided I wanted to do was do a flap back rather than to sew this shut and use polyfill with it. And so I bought just a pillow form, and then did this flap back so that I can change out and use that pillow form for other pillows, and then just have like the flat pillow cover that I can use during the holiday. And then the pillow form can be used year round for different designs. So that made it a little bit more complicated. I also decided, so I sewed my trim, my ribbon trim in rather than adding it afterward. And then I decided to do mitered corners with a plaid. Never done mitered corners, never sewed a pillow. So that was a little bit complicated. I was happy with how all of that turned out with the exception of the ribbon. And we should actually put up a picture of how this ribbon was a bit of a disaster. So it's actually about doubly as wide as this. And I sewed it on and I took a picture and I sent it to Rochelle and I was like, I feel like I'm flashing back to the 80s. This looks like Tiffany's first communion pillow. I mean, this ribbon was really, really wide. It was a serious flashback to the 80s. And I was like, I'm happy with this in every respect except for that ribbon trim. I just can't. And so we talked about a couple different ideas, and what I finally came up with was I folded the ribbon in half and sewed it so that it would be just this, what you see here. It looks a lot better this way, but I'm not entirely happy with, I would do that differently.
It's half of what it was.
It's half of what it was. Yeah, I would definitely do that differently next time. I would go with a different trim entirely. The other thing that I think I would do differently is I included a full inch of space on the fabric, my stitching fabric, my linen, between that and where it joins the border. And I think I would use less space next time. So a few things I would do differently, but on the whole, I think for somebody who bit off more than she realistically could chew with taking on a very complicated, for me, first pillow, on the whole, I'm pretty happy with it. And I learned some really good things that I will do differently next time. And I'm looking forward to making more stitchy pillows over the next year. So really, really generally pleased with it. And I love the fact that I have this flappy back so that I can change that pillow out. So there we go.
What do you call that again?
This is the primitive Mary.
The back part?
It's that flappy.
Okay.
It's I don't know what that's not the official terminology because I'm not a sewer.
No, I just think it's funny.
The floppy back. Brought to you from Port Orchard, Washington. All right. Enough of that. I also had a finish. Yay! So you saw in my last video that I had a very small start on the My Love by Madame Chantilly. So we'll show you a picture of what that looked like the last time you saw it. Again, really small start. I was stitching that design on 32 count charcoal Belfast linen. And I actually was able to get a finish on it just last night. And I'm so delighted with how it turned out. So this is what it looks like. I already told you what fabric I stitched this on. This is all in DMC thread. This was just a real joy to stitch. I so enjoyed every stitch of working on this. It was a lot of fun. It was a really refreshing design to work on. And I love that it has sort of a simple, I don't know, it just feels like an English cottage country kind of feel to it, but it also has something of a contemporary flavor as well. And I think that's because the letters are so just like clean cut. So I really, really enjoyed working on this. And so I'm going to be also framing this myself. So I need to go out over the next couple of weeks and I want to find a nice white rustic frame to use with this. But this was a real joy to stitch. It did come together very quickly. It was a really easy stitch. And so if you at all like this, I would encourage you to take a look. This was a real pleasure. So there we have My Love by Madame Chantilly. Okay. So that leaves my whips. Let's talk about what I've been working on since my last video. The first one, I was telling you, so when I had my big finish with Rose Quaker Sampler, I was telling you that I was planning to have, I had one day in the rotation, my sampler rotation left to work on a new start. And I was showing you that I was going to be working on the Loose Feathers summer piece of the seasonal sampler by Blackbird Designs. And so this is what I was able to do in one day. A very small start, but again, this was another one that I really, really had a lot of fun working on this, just getting that initial start. It was a real pleasure. The colors are so, so beautiful, and I'm really looking forward to this coming back out in the next couple of weeks because it was a real pleasure to work on. I am stitching this with all of the called for threads and also on the called for fabric, which is a 30, let's see, I think this is a 35 count or a 37 count Irish cream linen by R&R. I can't remember the exact count. It's 35 or 37. At any rate, it's a good start, and so that's where we are. All right. The next whip that I worked on was Celtic Autumn. And this one, I am happy to say I finally made some reasonably good progress. I'm pretty happy with what I accomplished on it. We'll show you a picture of what it looked like the last time you saw it. Celtic Autumn is being stitched on 32 count Earthen Belfast linen by Picture This Plus. Really, really enjoyed this one as well this last time. So I was able to put in, let's see here. I was able to put in a couple more of these little medallions along the side and work that border down a little bit farther, and then made some really great progress on her skirt. So I got about 1.5, almost 2 full diagonals finished in her skirt. So I finished this big thick section of orange that's got all kinds of metallic swirls and beads, and then got a good start moving down this way, and also started, so there's this whole big chunk of also metallic swirls that will come in here on her skirt, and so I was able to start the first few stitches that will go into that. But really enjoying how this is coming together, and as I was looking at the chart this last time, it feels like those diagonals are starting to get significantly shorter each one I finish. And so it feels like I was kind of doubting that I would finish her this year, and a lot depends on how much stitchy time I get on her, but I think I may have a shot at actually finishing her in 2020, which would be really, really great. So I'm really happy with how she's looking. She's so, so beautiful. Those colors are absolutely fantastic. And for those of you who are wondering, this is not my conversion. This conversion is Janet Granger's conversion, which you can find on her blog. And I will include a link to that blog in the description box below. All right. And then the final whip that I worked on was my March Cottage by Country Cottage Needleworks. And this one I am stitching, so we'll show you a picture of what it looked like the last time you saw it. And I was kind of thinking I hadn't made a ton of progress. This particular design, I feel like I've been stitching it forever. Some of those cottages feel like they just stitch up in no time at all. This one feels like it has taken me a long time to actually get some real progress. But I'm close to the home stretch on it now, and I feel like I might be able to actually finish it over this next week if I can stay consistent in putting a little bit of time into it every single day. So this is where we are with it. I am stitching this on 28 count Mushroom Lugana, all the called for flosses, and stitching this 2/2. So I am almost finished with this tree. I just need to put in a couple more leaves. Have almost finished this whole bottom border. Wow, we've got a lot of Bear and Sophie specialty fibers in there today. But I've almost finished the whole bottom border, and I am making really good headway on that house. So it's definitely coming along, and I'm looking forward to finishing this up because the April cottage, I just love the colors in the April cottage, and so I'm really looking forward to getting that one started when this one is finished. All right, that is it for whips. Let's see. I wanted to show you, so just really quickly on the subject of haul, I should have pulled these up. As I was mentioning when we went to Acorns and Threads, I had a minimal amount of haul. I didn't actually buy any charts, although Lord knows I could have. But I just picked up a few really lovely fabrics that I'm looking forward to stitching on. So this gorgeous aqua colored fabric, I have a plan in mind for it. And I just need to find the right floss for the design I want to work on it. This sort of yellowy, I think this is called sand, but it's actually a really pretty kind of buttery yellow, really, really beautiful. And I also have something, so I have fabric that's on order that has been taking a long time to come in. And if that fabric doesn't come in, I'm probably going to substitute with this because it'll work just as well. And it's so pretty. It's just a luscious, buttery yellow.
Sorry.
What, you have a problem with the word luscious?
No. Buttery.
Buttery. It's like
Luscious
butter.
Buttery yellow.
And then this last one is sort of a lavender grayish lavender, like smoky lavender kind of color, and it's called French Country. And this one is a 32 count linen. So this one is the only piece that I don't kind of have a design sort of in mind for. And, but I have a couple that I've already started placing threads and so I'm sure I will have, something that I'm going to put on this. It shouldn't be hard to decide which of the designs will go on it. So that was my Acorns and Threads haul. Pretty reasonable if I do say so myself. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about, as I had mentioned earlier in the video, I've had a lot of questions from folks lately about color conversions, whether that's for skin or for changing a design. And so I wanted to take a few minutes and just give you a couple tips and tricks. I am by no means an expert on color conversions. There are some folks that do this all the time. They do really complicated ones. And so they are great resources to learn from. I am not that person, but there are a couple of different ways that you can approach it. And so I wanted to just share some thoughts for those of you who are interested in changing the colors for your designs. So the most basic kind of color conversion would be for a small. So I'll hold up the March Cottage as an example. Actually, I'll hold up the Merry Christmas Pillow because I did a conversion on this. So you'll remember I had an accidental conversion on the letters, but I had actually planned to do a conversion just on the berries because I wanted something that was brighter and less primitive. And so the way that I approached this was because there wasn't a lot of... because it's such a small design and there's not a lot of colors, I was able to just kind of in my mind's eye see what I wanted to do with it and then I actually chose my threads down at Acorns and Threads earlier this year for this one. And I was able to just go to the shop and kind of pull the colors off the wall that I was looking for. And so that's the most basic kind of color conversion. And that works really well for something that's simple like this. I do recommend whenever possible that you do a floss toss where you have the fabric that you're planning to use. And if you're doing a partial color conversion, that you throw whatever called for threads you're using along with the color converted threads that you're thinking about onto that fabric to make sure it all works together and looks nice. But it can be as simple as that. It can be as simple as saying, I'm going to switch out one or two colors to just change it up a little bit. So that can be really straightforward and basic. Where it can get a little bit more complicated is if you want to do a color conversion, say for like a Mirabilia for a dress or for an element of a Mirabilia. And this is where I wanted to talk about what I did with Sabrina. So as I had mentioned, those roses were originally charted in pink and I wanted them to be in red. And there's a couple of different ways to approach a color conversion like that, particularly when you're dealing with an element in a design that has 2, 3, 4 or more different shades of a color to give it depth. The way that I tend to approach it, because I find this easiest, is if I can find another chart that has the colors that I want to use, and it uses roughly the same number of colors for that shading, I will just borrow from that. So, for instance, when I did my Peace Angel for my aunt, when I did that color conversion, I chose the blue colors not by myself, like, just picking some blues. I actually chose a gradation of blue colors that were recommended in a different chart. And that way I knew they were all going to work together and it was going to give me a good range of highlight to shadow and the colors in between. And that's what I actually did with these roses as well. I really loved the red tones that were charted in the Lavender and Lace Oh Christmas Tree, that we showed you some videos back. The red colors that are used in the little girl's dress are just so pretty and Christmassy. And I knew that was the colors, those were the tones I wanted to use for the roses here. And so that's all I did was I went and I grabbed the colors that were used there and plugged them in here. Now, where that can be challenging is if, let's say, I think there were maybe 3 or 4 colors used in lavender and lace, and there might have been 5 colors called for in the roses. So what you can do in that case is you can choose another color of thread somewhere within the spectrum, either usually more of a shadow color or a highlight color. It's your choice. Or you can introduce blended threads. And that's typically what I tend to do, is introduce blended threads, because I feel like that creates more of a blended look from highlight to shadow. And so for me, using somebody else's already existing color palette and plugging it in where I want it tends to be a really good method. There's one other method that I know a lot of folks have used, and I don't tend to use this, but a lot of times folks will look at what's called for in the chart, and they'll see, okay, how many colors do I need? What's the rough, what's the rough span or the rough range of light to dark? And then they will actually go to the like Joann's or Michael's, and they will look at what's available in the DMCs and kind of pull and create their own color conversion. I've never done that. Because I think I'm a little uncomfortable with, pulling from different number sets potentially, and making sure that the color isn't too warm or too dark and that things actually all work together. But that is another approach you can take, particularly if you're not able to find the colors that you want in another chart that you have access to, where you can just see what worked in another design. So a couple different ways to approach it. But that's how I tend to approach it. So hopefully that helps. Let me know if you have other questions about that. And of course, always, if you see always, because there are so many talented people out there that are doing conversions, you can always get those. Particularly, there's a lot of great Facebook groups that specialize in conversions, and folks are usually really more than happy if you ask to share the conversions that they have done. All right, so we're going to wrap up by just talking about what I'm going to be working on between now and the next video. This next week, I'm going to be working on my full coverage piece again. So Rose Trellis In is going to be coming back out, and I'm really hoping that I'm going to have enough time to put in on that I can start working on the pink part of the turret. So we shall see, fingers crossed. Then after that, I need to make a decision. So I've kind of settled. I had talked several videos ago about adding another spot to my rotation because I've realized, so I really wanted to start working on one of the beautiful African market charts that I was sharing with you that were designed by Hannah's Needlecraft. But none of those charts fit cleanly in any of the specific slots that I have in my rotation. They're not seasonal, they're not samplers, they're not full coverage, and they're not fancy ladies. So, and as I was thinking about it, I was realizing I have a number of charts that don't fit cleanly into one of those categories. And if I only work with those categories, then I'll never actually get a chance to stitch on those. And so I'm thinking I may add a wild card spot to the rotation that can just be, I can stitch on whatever I want, particularly if it doesn't fit cleanly in one of those categories. And so I need to decide if this is the time to introduce that spot to the rotation and get a start on one of those beautiful market charts that I had shared with you. If I don't do that, then it will be time to go on and work on my sampler again. So we'll see what I decide to do next time. It'll kind of be what I'm feeling. And if I do decide to add that new slot to the rotation, I'm going to have to kind of reorient my calendar so I can make it all work. I like the idea of being able to touch every single one of my pieces, at least, for 1 week a month, and adding that new spot to the rotation is going to make that impossible. So I need to think about it a little bit more, but I'm kind of leaning in that direction. So we shall see. And then I will also be working on my March cottage and hoping to finish that up before the next time we film. I also wanted to make one quick note to you about the giveaway that we currently have open with Yany Stitcher. So you saw in my last video that we talked about the beautiful charts that she kindly has offered to do a giveaway with us for. Because we were a little bit delayed in getting that video posted, we haven't had enough time. It hasn't been a full week between when we posted that and when we're filming this. And I want to make sure that we give folks enough time to enter that contest before we actually choose the winners. And so we will be sharing the winners of that design in video 9. So make sure you come back for that. And we're looking forward to finding out who's going to stitch those charts, who's going to win them. I can't wait to see. I think it's going to be beautiful.
Well, we're not shooting video 9 for 2 weeks.
Right. So it's going to be
And it's going to be at least a week and a half of editing.
Right. So it's going to be a while. That's what we wanted to make sure you knew.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we might talk about whether it makes sense to just do a really quick short video to announce a giveaway winner between now and then, so it's not a full month of time between. We'll figure it out and let you know. At any rate, if you like this video, please give us a like. If you're not already a subscriber, we hope that you will subscribe. And of course, always leave comments. We enjoy reading all of your comments and responding to those as quickly as we can. And you can also follow me on Instagram, where I post my progress on a semi-regular basis. I am at globetrotting_stitcher. You can also send us an email if you want at globetrottingstitcher@gmail.com. So for the next couple of weeks, please stay well, stay safe. Enjoy the beginning of autumn. We hope that you are all doing well, and we hope that you are stitching on all the things you love. We will see you very soon. Bye-bye.
Did I turn around when you said like and stuff?
I think you did.
Because you said it?
I did say it.
All right, well, so long then.
So long.